and it's just really bizarre, sort of this this bizarre world, and he hears uh, the Vietnamese guy. Like at first, you think that all the stories are going to fit in because he bases one story on a serial killer that's been killing people recently. That turns out to be what's his name again?
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. Yeah, that turns out to be Sam Rockwell. Then he takes a story that Sam Rockwell told him once about a Quaker who followed a guy and attempted to commit suicide just so that he could hurt him, and because he killed his daughter. And that was really funny. It's like a Buddhist psychopath and an Amish psychopath. Everybody in the theater, because we're in Pennsylvania, so everybody in the theater laughed at that point. And then it was like a Quaker psychopath, and then he tells a story, and it turns out that psychopath is Christopher Walken. So then you get to the Vietnamese psychopath, and everybody in the audience, or at least me, was sitting there like, okay, so who is this guy? I mean, because
Yeah.
they replaced actors with the Christopher Walken story as a reveal. So maybe this guy isn't actually Vietnamese, or he's another character who has Vietnamese roots. Maybe it's the girlfriend. She comes back, and it turns out she's like part Vietnamese, and she's also a psychopath or something. But no, it turns out that the Vietnamese guy is more of a thematic thread. He's just like there's some analogy that you're supposed to draw between that character and his arc, because in the end he turns out to be a peaceful man, and like either connect it to Christopher Walken's arc or Marty's arc maybe, or just or
Yeah.
maybe it's not connected to anybody. Maybe it's like this is what happened after I watched Pulp Fiction. Really, maybe it's supposed to be maybe it's supposed to be that it's like um, these pop-ups keep coming in and like going right in front of my face in the corner of the screen. But
Ah.
maybe it's supposed to be just like a moral of the film that none of them were following, but it's the way it should be.
Yeah.
It's I don't I think I may have jumped the tracks. We were originally going to treat the themes of the film and the story of the film as separate, but I think I've jumped the tracks there. But
Well,
yeah, and
we'll be it together, you know.
yeah, I loved. I think my favorite side story out of all of them was Tom Waits. His story is about him and his girlfriend killing serial killers throughout history,
Yeah.
and that was tons of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was what I was going to tie into the Vietnamese thing because
yeah,
I didn't see that coming. I thought it was at first I thought it was heresy when he brought in like, oh, Tom Waits and his girlfriend were responsible for taking out the Zodiac. That was like
yeah. I was
a
surprised at
big
that.
surprise because
Did Zodiac
because
escape in history? I thought that we
yeah,
caught him.
like wait, what are you saying?
I thought we caught Zodiac.
I didn't hear that.
I thought we caught Zodiac.
Oh, no. The
Okay.
movie version implies that we caught someone, but in reality, it's never been solved.
Okay.
It's one of the most like it's the case that California detectives still kick themselves over to this day because it's like there were so many things that could have solved the case, but we just never got the right evidence or we never got the right timing or whatever. But anyway,
This is
I
why
thought that was a
movies
nice
are
touch.
better
And
than
then
life.
I wasn't, I'm sure the other ones were real murders. I hadn't done my I haven't done my research yet on those. But
No,
then
it doesn't really
at
matter
the
though.
end, how the Vietnamese guy turns out to be the monk
Yeah.
who, protested the war, and I was like, that just
So
that threw me for
bizarre.
a loop. And it was like it was weird because for me, I want to treat this film as its own universe, kind of like what Tarantino does. Tarantino never ties his movies back to reality because they exist in their own universe. He explains this, like he explains it on his site how there are two timelines for his movies, and they all take place in either two different parallel universes because the characters are related and stuff. It's crazy, but I like that McDonough was brave enough to say, "Guess what? This is the real world because people are this crazy and they go through these things every day." And
That's a very McDonough
oh,
thing to say in a movie. That everyone's a
yeah,
psychopath.
yeah, and like just the end there, and like of course, he has to subvert the moment because it's like, oh, I can't be too profound, and it's like, and then like because this whole Vietnamese thing for you viewers is Christopher Walken describing how he thinks that arc should end
Yeah.
into a like what would you call one of those, tape recorder, I guess.
Yeah, as a tape recorder.
Yeah, like so he's talking into a tape recorder, and it goes through all this thing, and there's this big, beautiful music thing by Carter Burwell, who did a great job with the score for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Really eclectic, really cool score. And then, he subverts that, like, immediately. It's like almost like he's gonna have an epiphany, and let you know this epiphany about choosing the peaceful self-immolation path as a way to light. And then he subverts it like, fags. I don't think they want to be called fags these days. I think they prefer homos, and then it just trails off.
Yeah, I love the line. Yeah, I love that little bit there, just because, one, no one says the word homo like Christopher Walken does. Like, even me trying to do an impression, I can't match the precise magic of him saying the word homo. But
Yeah.
second, I know you said dream sequences off of fags, and I can totally hear Martin McDonagh saying that, and I kind of agree with him. Just dream sequences are kind of overdone sometimes, but yeah, I think the way Christopher Walken Christopher Walken's character came up with that idea, I think it was an interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and you said we kind of bled over, but
Yeah.
so I mean, we can just talk about themes now because
Go for
you
it.
know it's.
I think at this point we're free associating and making things up as we go along in the Walken tradition. So just continue.
Yes. Because usually I just say whatever I want.
Exactly. Jimmy, the spell the same on the card.
But yeah, I mean, I put a Facebook status talking about this movie, and like for me, I really touch it on it as a writer because I'm always struggling. Like, do I tell like a story that I know is gonna get an audience in? Like, because I have certain script ideas that like at face value sound very crowd pleasing. Like, oh, a black comedy with lower level mafia people. That'll be hilarious.
Right.
And things like that. You know, crowd pleasing epic where a young man goes on quest to discover himself, comes home, and that sort of thing. But it's like, and at the same time, it's like, but am I trying to write this for an audience, or should I just be, you know, writing what I want to write? Because then, you know, it's like, I always think of John Foreman from Switchfoot talking about songwriting. It's like you write this thing that's really personal, and then you put it out to the world, and all of a sudden you find out that it's not really so personal at all. It's kind of this universal thing.
Well, that's the hope and that's the dream.
I mean, I wouldn't argue that McDonagh's mind is universal, because otherwise Hollywood would be a lot less bland, to be blunt. But I like that central question. It's like, you know, because Sam Rockwell's character throughout the movie keeps suggesting he needs to have this big epic shootout, which prompts that sequence that Billy mentioned, the graveyard shootout, which
Christopher
is
Walken
actually
as Nosferatu.
it's like one of the better shootouts I've seen in a movie, and it's not even real, which I love about that.
And my other favorite moment from that, other than the Christopher Walken coming out of the grave thing, when his girlfriend comes in and says, "I'm sorry for being such a bitch," and then they have her as she's being shot, just going like, I realize I just came off as really a pig on the internet. It's a dream sequence from the mind of Sam Rockwell. That's what makes it funny.
Yes, well, it's so gratuitous. You have no choice but to laugh.
And he shoots him to the neck with an arrow, but that's not enough. So he also shoots him with a shotgun.
I remember I think that was the first moment in the movie I literally burst out laughing, just because I was expecting something like that the whole movie, and it wasn't happening. So I'm like, okay, maybe McDonough's going to be subtle, and then like when that's through the neck, it's like, yeah, just his head blows up, and then later, Christopher Walken and Marty are riding in the car. It's like people's heads actually explode. Well, yeah, if it was made out of explosives. just, just pointing out the like people's
Hmm.
heads don't blow up like that. Uh, but like I love that battle they were going on. Like Marty's like, I want to write a real story about real people, and Sam Rockwell's like, you need to have a shootout. And
Yeah.
then even at the end, when he's like facing down his demise, it's kind of like, sorry, Marty, this movie's got to end my way.
Yeah.
And okay, so that was one of my favorite moments in the movie because they kept building up to it. How they made his final moments were totally badass, like action hero, but yet it had that little touching thing with the dog.
Yeah.
Like, and okay, people, if you like animals, holy crap, the animals in this movie are cute.
They
The
really
dog is
are.
so cute.
And
Uh,
yeah, this is not the kind of film that's. And the bunnies were adorable. Like even the one who was drinking blood that one time. Yeah. I mean, I was honestly afraid that the Shih Tzu was going to get its head blown off. We gave a spoiler warning earlier. I was honestly afraid that the Shih Tzu was going to get its head blown off because of that short film he made.
yeah.
Like that one traumatized me. Martin McDonagh made a short film where he blew the head off of a bunny at the end, and like you have Brendan Gleeson like hugging a decapitated bunny.
Yeah,
It was
it's
not
not
kosher.
it's not a very easy image to get out of your head.
No.
Although, at least with this movie, it seems like McDonagh's worldview is getting slightly better as time goes on.
Yeah. It seems like he's getting tired because like the character himself is like I don't want to write that kind of movie anymore. Like, I
Yeah.
wrote that kind of movie for a long time. I don't want to write that kind of movie.
Although
So
I do find it interesting that apparently he wrote at least the majority of the script before he wrote In Bruges. Like
fascinating.
this script is older than In Bruges, but apparently he went back and revised it after he did In Bruges because he realized, okay, I can actually get what the people I want now. So he went back and edited some characters and probably some arcs
Right.
but yeah, I mean, this movie's so laced with like symbolism and themes and things, and it's honestly, I might have to go see it again just so I can catch all the references. Like, it's meta on a lot of levels. Like I pointed out, they'll sometimes talk about a scene right after it happens, like a fictional scene. They'll talk about in the real world, and
Hmm.
then, but like a lot of times they'll be referencing things, and you don't realize they're foreshadowing or they're doing something else. And I probably would want to see it again, knowing where the movie goes, in order to catch everything.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. How do themes work for you as a film person? Because as a writer, I'm seeing it a lot. I didn't see a lot of it in the filmic sense of things.
Well, I don't think that there's a whole lot of. I think that it's very much tied into writing. I don't. It's not as much as a film movie as it is a straight writing movie. Like they're like I said, they're writing the movie as they are experiencing it. It's like if. Now I'm not going to draw another analogy. I've been drawing too many. Um,
Well, you're on a roll.
well,
Might
yeah.
as well.
Okay, so it's almost not quite, but it's like if the universe in which the characters in Wayne's World inhabits was a serious one, in which they weren't just winking at the camera and saying, haha, you guys know that this is fake. They were looking, and they never quite look at the camera, but they're still aware that there's a movie, they're aware on some level that there's a movie going on. Okay, this movie is what the Deadpool movie needs to be. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah, let's hope we get that. I don't know how that's.
It's not going to happen. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But this is what the Deadpool movie ought to be. It was just like
Yeah.
very self-aware, and it really does. It feels like the process of writing a story. In my experience with writing, which, as I've said before, is extremely limited, but when I come up with ideas, I'm very much inspired by like 50s British horror stories and stuff like that. So when I come up with ideas, they tend to be like darker, more exploitation style films. And a lot of times I want to say something deeper.